Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Health In Show, an affiliate program of Homeopathy World Community. I'm your host, Debby Bruck, founder of Homeopathy World Community Social Network. Thank you to all our returning viewers and listeners. I do hope we have some groupies out there, and I would like to introduce our producer, Amnon Nissan on Nissan Communications.
Good morning, Debbie. How are you?
I love our music, our intro. We bop in, we are dancing, we're swaying and reverberating here. So this is the third show in the series dealing with migraines and headaches. I could say because June is Migraine Awareness Month, something that I just learned. And we are also going to make a request today that I think there's a place right below your screen where you can click and vote. And I really want you to do it now. Is it not there? No, we don't have it.
On your show.
Okay, it's not on my show, but we do want to help.
On the main page.
On the main page, there is a button that goes to a place where everyone can vote and help support this network. Basically, it shows that you care. Just receiving and seeing that people are voting for us gives us a thrill. But besides that, we need to receive 250 votes just to have our grant proposal reviewed. And if the grant goes through, then we will be able to distribute this show with higher resolution and more widely. So we're asking for your help. Thanks so much. Also, you'll notice that my regular co-host, Dr. Deepak Sharma, is not with me today. I'm kind of flying solo here. Instead, I brought a few other friends. I brought Dr. Roberts, who has written the book on sensations as if. I brought this Dr. Clark, MD, who is the prescriber, and he is chock full of information, and my trusty repertory from Boriki, which is, you can see, very well worn, falling apart. And here we have the Materia Medica. It's like an encyclopedia of the different remedies in homeopathy, where you go in and confirm your selection when you want to choose something. I also have tons of information, and everybody can read on the Homeopathy World Community Network all the different blogs, and I was reviewing one today on cell salts. So the topic at hand is migraines and headaches in children. And yes, they do have headaches. A quote that I will start with is, "I thought so hard, I got a headache." That was by J.D. Cobb. And you can see that, to me, it's sort of a voice of someone who's really, really either working really hard in school or working at their desk, or frustrated that they are, you can just imagine this is the position that they might be in. I also recommend that people really talk with their children. If a child is afraid that they might die, then we might think of the homeopathic remedy aconite for fright and shock and fear. And this is really a good way to begin with any kind of a major problem where somebody feels that they might die even after an accident. It could also be that because migraines and headaches could be hereditary, that they're in a home where they see one or both parents with these types of debilitating headaches. And if you've ever seen anybody in this condition, you know how severe it can be. And a child might be very afraid. And in that case, again, aconite might help the child to relieve their sense of fear. And of course, if this is something that's happening to a parent, the parents might be afraid that their children will get it, knowing that it could be hereditary, and the child might again be afraid because they know they could one day wake up with a headache. Another thing about migraines or headaches in children, this has come to light that dysfunctional families, children living in a family with a lot of conflict and arguments, this could be an initiating factor for a child to get a headache. Just in the same way you think, children might wake up in the morning and say, I don't want to go to school today. I don't feel well. I have a tummy ache. In the same way, they could say the same thing. They might be wanting to get out of it a test, or they might really have fear of strangers. It's a new day in school or a new project. They have a lot of reasons, and that's why I'm going to emphasize on today's show, talk to your children. Find out the background, the reasons, their concerns, what it is that might be causing their headache. We might think that when we talk to our child, that they might feel neglected, especially in a dysfunctional family. They may feel punished, or they might be self-punishing or unconsciously blaming themselves for the discord that exists in the family environment. So these are just a few things that we want to touch on for looking at what could be causing a problem in the family. And of course, if parents are struggling themselves just to keep a balance and keep their lives on an even keel, then the child may actually not get enough attention. So this is where you have to go in and have somebody speak to a teacher, a healthcare worker, or someone in the community that can step in. Now, that is kind of an emotional basis for headaches. Another reason might be physical. And again, if a child is having difficulty with their day-to-day or on a monthly cycle, something's going on and they're getting these very severe migraines, headache pains, and a parent is watching, then the parent might be afraid that there is something really wrong going on, that they have a brain tumor, that something is growing, or they have high blood pressure. And, we know that obesity could be a factor toward headaches and migraines. And in that case, we have a rise of that in America and around the world. So this is why there is also a rise in headaches and migraines. Therefore, we have to take a holistic look at this whole picture, and things that we can do is take our child for an annual physical, especially having their eyes checked, because strain and stress on the eyes, we've talked about that in previous shows, could be a cause for headaches. And we do have homeopathic remedies for all of these conditions, but we want to rule out, because homeopathy is holistic. And if you're in an environment that is not conducive to total health and well-being, then even with homeopathic remedies, there's just so much you can do. If every day the kid wakes up and hears screaming and yelling amongst the parents, the homeopathic remedy can give a boost to the child's vitality and help them cope. But until they're like 18 or can leave the home, they're going to be under that stress and strain.
Is it a good thing when you say take the kid for checkout?
Yes.
Checkup.
Yes.
Is it a good thing to take him also to a checkup from a homeopathic doctor, or
Yes, both. You want to see your regular medical doctor,
right,
to rule out any physical condition that may actually be the cause of the headaches. So if, even a chiropractor, if there's a misalignment in the spine and the child needs an adjustment, if There's constantly tension, even going for massage. There are a lot of things, and parents can learn. This is one of the things that Dr. Christina Chambreau always teaches on the Blog Talk Radio show on Thursday at 11. She's a veterinarian, but it goes as well for people as for animals. She says, first line, use Reiki. Use the power of the energy that you have within to reduce stress. And then she'll say, use flower essences, something very, very gentle. What is it that we'd have to do a whole show on flower essences to learn which types of flowers would reduce stress and be gentle in any situation. Totally no side effects, no harm, but gives comfort. And we usually think about Bach rescue remedy as a first line. And if you're ever anywhere, keep a little bottle with you.
So, I mean, if you take a kid to the doctor and it comes from a house where there's a lot of
tension
yep. and arguments and yelling and all that, the doctor, I mean, I'm assuming that probably the doctor will say, oh, well, he's depressed, so he should take such and such. At that point, is it better to go and see a homeopath to get a natural thing, or would you say that the doctor is right? He should take whatever they call it, Zoloft or whatever they call it.
Right. You're exactly right. Very often, headaches can lead to depression because they are so painful, they're so debilitating and chronic that you can slide into a state of hopelessness and depression, and you can't get out of it, and there's no escape, especially in this kind of a situation. So we can go around, and definitely you could see a homeopath, and a homeopath would probably say, not look at the child and get them into a safe environment, feel that this is a safe place where they can express themselves and speak about their troubles and open up to a homeopath. And this might take a little time to develop that form of trust between the practitioner and the child. But then most likely the homeopath would say, this is a family situation, get counseling. And also the homeopath may want to treat the parents as well, so that we're getting into a better situation overall. And Hahnemann, the founder of homeopathy, always said, you need to look at blocks to cure. If your headaches are coming from something outside, whether it is, if you're talking about bad weather and you get migraines because the barometer changes, then homeopathy may be able to help you in that situation. If it cannot, a lot of people would think about moving to a better climate where they don't see a lot of barometric pressure change. But most likely, homeopathy can help in these situations. Other kinds of external pressures are if your clothing is not fitting properly, if your eyeglasses are not fitting properly. In these situations, you're going to get irritation, and it can lead to, over time, these migraine headaches. I'm going to check in the chat to see if we've got some questions going on. Dr. Deepak, India, says this is more important to understand the psychological aspect in children, and it needs very careful attention while we are taking the symptoms. Yes, and as you know, in homeopathy, we have many, many chapters in our books, and looking at Boericke's Materia Medica with a repertory in the back, which is really nice because it has a very simple section in the back where, if I can find it here. So it has a section in the back here that goes through the different systems of the body. So circulatory section, and part of one of those is the mind section. In the mind section of the repertory, which is a list of rubrics of symptoms that we search for and find what's going on individually with each person, and I want to look up the mind, or actually, in this case, I would look up the head and also generalities, which is the general modalities of each individual. So, finding it, here we are. There's one that I wanted to point out for the eyes, because the eyes are so often a part of a migraine headache. The person may have an aura, which is like a premonition or a pre-headache, a prodrome, it's called, where they can have sparks, flashing lights, blind spots, all sorts of different situations, sensations that they have that precede the actual pain of the headache and can go through that headache and even afterwards. So you might look up in the eyes section what's going on. And one of them is in optical illusions. There's at least a dozen different homeopathic remedies, including belladonna, which is for a person who's, you see them, their eyes, their pupils are dilated, they have a flushed face, dry skin, could even be hallucinating, and this is a state of terror for a child. And so belladonna usually is a good one, especially if it comes along with a fever. And then a more gentler, and what I wanted to talk about a little bit was some cell salts, which are low potency in the 6x potency of homeopathic remedies. We have mag-phos, magnesium phosphorus, and magnesium carb. A couple of other ones that come in that we've talked about in the past shows are sepia for headaches, lycopodium, tobacum, and zinc. So then there's one little section that says, under that optical illusion, it says flashes, flames, and flickering. And this could possibly be where you'd look for some remedies to solve the puzzle for that particular instance. But you have to remember, if there are 15 remedies listed, you have to put the whole puzzle together. You have to look at all the different things that are going on before, during, and after. Is it associated with indigestion? So we talked about nux vomica for that kind of bilious indigestion with the headache. And of course we know vomiting often goes along with a headache. And when we think about vomiting and a headache and even diarrhea, we could think about arsenicum album. We can also think about the nux vomica. And lycopodium for shy but domineering children who are afraid of new situations, are afraid of going to school in having to perform and having to do something of that nature, as well as argentum nitricum we spoke about for performance anxiety, anticipation, and all of these things can bring on headache in a sensitive child. And if anybody has questions, I'll take them here. Headaches are usually a symptom of other deeper problems, only sometimes are they primary. That's a good thing to mention, Dr. Bob. Yeah, because we have to go along, and that's one of the things that a homeopath does, is try to find the root cause. What is the essence of what's going on? What is the motivating factor for the child, but also this is a weak point for each individual who gets a migraine or a headache. As I said before, some people can end up with like Crohn's or some other kind of disease that expresses the tension and stress within their body as opposed to a headache. Dr. Sharma, are you on the line?
Hello.
Hello, we hear you on the show.
Yes, I can. I am hearing your show, but the video is not good
That's
today.
fine.
So it's a very good discussion about the children's psychology. But uh, when we are talking about the children psychology and children migraine, it is very typical to understand many times of that what the child thinks, because the many maximum time the child is coming with the parents, and or she can, the child cannot be speak very well in front of them.
I can't hear.
The child cannot
Okay.
explain the thoughts, what they are thinking, and so there is very difficulty to understand symptoms. I think it is really tough to choose a typical symptom.
Okay, so it's kind of difficult connection today for some reason, but we have Dr. Deepak India who says iris versicolor is always a good choice of medicine in every type of migraine. If the symptoms fit, that would be good. We know that that is for pain in the eye, and I wanted to bring up my friend Dr. John Clark, MD, who is the prescriber. He has a whole chapter here on headaches as to the character and position of headaches, with a list of about 50 of them and a short clip of information that tells kind of what you're going to see and try to differentiate between them. And I thought I would read a couple of them to you today. So if there's a headache coming on in the morning on waking and lasting the greater part of the day, the headache brought on by coughing, very interesting, is Natrium muriaticum. And Natrium muriaticum is typically thought of as it's NaCl, our common table salt, and for a child who loves and craves salt or even does not want any salt. We have two ends of the spectrum, two extremes, because a person can have a cycle. They can either dislike or like something, and it could be the same remedy that's required. We think of Natrium muriaticum for grief. This is a very studious type of a child, and that is what he says. So it's on in the morning. And you would also might think about lachesis, that snake remedy, for someone who wakes up with pains. And of course, Dr. Clark says burning on the vertex, burning on the top of the head, one-sided sick headache with a pale face, headache that is worse after sleep than we would think of the lachesis. Another one that is another snake remedy is weight and oppression at the vertex. Again, something that's going on at the top of the head, with cold feet and flushing of the feet, dull but severe pain in the forepart of the side of the head, with great depression. So you can see the connection between depression and headaches, and that remedy is nausea. I think that's the cobra. Yes?
You're not talking about snake oil here.
This is not snake oil. This
Right.
is snake
That's
the energy
this is
of the
scientific
snake.
stuff.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
is the real snake.
Yeah.
And you know that in traditional medicine, the venom of the snake is used as a heart remedy to stimulate the heart. So it is used in all forms of medicine. And you know, you think about the do 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 do. Well, you know, this is really hypnotic state, and you can see how it could apply. We have the dull headache with depressed spirits, and again, if it's concerned with the bowels, constipation, so they're all bound up and they're not able to go, we can look at plumbum, lead. And in that case, you might think that there might be some environmental cause of lead in the paint in the house, or somewhere in the construction of the house, in an older home if you live there, or even in some of the foods. I actually did an enormous blog on Hub Pages, and lead can be found in glassware that people drink out of or eat out of. Lead can be found all over, and this could obviously lead to headaches. Dr. Deepak says he had a case of a 9-year-old male child with a diagnosis of a migraine from an allopathic physician. And when he talked with him, he said he hates his father because he never loved him and also was getting beatings. So the remedy that he prescribed, which I mentioned just a moment ago, was Nature Muriaticum in a 1 single dose. And in 3 months, and in a month for 3 consecutive months, and he got complete relief of the headache, which shows that, and he also got counseling, which is highly recommended. It shows that even in a dysfunctional home, that there is hope out there for children to be relieved of their pain and suffering.
Not by just masking.
Not by just taking a drug for depression, right, or a drug for a vasodilator, or a drug for manipulating the hormones or the chemicals within the body, but actually going much deeper and letting the body's own vital force do the healing. And I want to remind people that these remedies carry the energy, and they only work if the resonance is matching the individual. If you choose and go to the pharmacy or to the health food store and you select a remedy based on the name on it, so this one says urethritis, so let's say you take it because that's what you have, a name of a disease, it may not work for you. And it's not that homeopathy doesn't work, it's that this remedy wasn't individually selected specifically for your condition and your symptoms and the way that you display and express your discomforts. Okay, so let's move on to another. Headaches from loss of sleep, mental strain and worry, aching at the vertex, the top, at the occiput, the back, and in the eyeballs. So those 3 parts of the head is actia racemosa, which I don't usually think about as a headache remedy. It's a smaller remedy. But we can see how Dr. Clark really knew his remedies and understood the way his patients behaved and responded. Okay, so here we have another one, which really comes in good for school kids. A headache beginning in the occiput, the back, extending forward and downwards, causing obscuration of sight, and shooting pain up the spine into the head. And here he recommends picric acid. And this acid is, usually we think about acid remedies for people who are having depression. They're very, very strong. And this one is recommended all over the books in homeopathy for people who are studying really, really hard. And it goes with the beginning of my quote. He read so hard, his head hurt. And so if you have somebody studying for an exam, picric acid will actually help them initially to do better, relieve their stress, relieve their tension, relieve the concern and worry about taking that exam. Many students do that. Okay, Dr. Deepak India, I'm so happy you're with us today. He says children who eat a lot of junk food, spices in excess. He suggests Robinia as a homeopathic remedy. And this is great because part of our environmental factors are allergic sensitivities, the spicy foods, cheeses that are grown with mold, fermented foods like red wine, with deli meats, like if you typically give your kids hot dogs and bologna and salami and all of those kinds of foods, they could be very sensitive to the nitrates and the nitrites within them, the sulfurs. Sulfur happens to be a really good headache remedy. And if you want to tell us any more, maybe we could look up Robinia and find out a little bit more about it, but let's move on here. And if anybody has any questions or wants to call in, I forgot to tell you that you can call in if you're in the United States at 919-518-0009. 9773, or with voice, you can go to your Skype and call in at computers 2K voice, and then you will get on the line and you'll have a conversation with me, and other people can hear what your concerns are or what your comments are to contribute. Do we have Dr. Sharma on? No?
Yeah. If it can. Go ahead, try.
Dr. Sharma, are you with us?
Yes, I am with you.
Okay,
But-
good. Now, I wanted to make one note. Earlier on, Dr. Deepak India, is that you? Oh, you said iris versicolor. So I want to say what Clark said. Headache beginning with a blur before the eyes, dull, heavy, or throbbing and shooting in the forehead and up the right side, so it's right-sided, with nausea, vomiting, and great depression. Okay, so I can understand why you selected iris versicolor, which is the common garden plant, the iris plant that we see come up in the springtime. How this could be really a heavy-duty headache. Very much, you might think about belladonna because of the throbbing sensation, but because you put all of this together with the depression and the right-sidedness, you would select iris. Do you have a comment? And maybe we don't have sound. Okay, so now we also, I mentioned earlier about lycopodium for children who, they actually can be quite bossy and domineering, and what they're doing is they're hiding and covering up their insecurity about themselves in the world. And they could also get a headache, Clark describes it as a headache on the vertex, on the temples, mostly on the right side, above the eyes, at the root of the nose, and it's worse when they're covered up, and worse at night, and worse when they're lying down. However, they feel better in the open air and from cold. And most keynote for them, and when we talk about a keynote, it means that it's been so many times confirmed by individuals who have experienced these symptoms that it becomes a black letter bolded in our books, and that would be they are worse from the hours from 4 to 8 p.m. And homeopaths are looking for these general modalities of what makes a person more comforted, feel better, and what is it that makes their symptoms actually more intense and worse. So if you see that the child in the afternoon comes home from school and they just can't do any work, they can't even eat, they just need to go to sleep, or they actually start acting up and being irritable and worse between the hours of 4 and 8, and their headache is worse at that time, you might consider a lycopodium, which is moss, a very ancient plant on this planet. And you can see also the comparison to pulsatilla, the little windflower, the moody child, the little fair towhead girl who all you need to do is wrap your arms around her and give her a hug and comfort her and make her feel better. In the same way, she also needs the open window, the air, and wants to be and feels better outside, or walking slowly outside. But she can also come down as a young schoolgirl with a headache. That's pulsatilla. Okay, we talked a little bit about the connection between our body systems and the digestive system. Now, there's a remedy that is, not only is lycopodium helpful to the liver and how we take care of the toxins within our body, but there's another remedy called chelidonium. And that one, Clark says, it's a oppressive headache on the right side and over the right eye. And let's take one more of Clark's recommendations. He also notes that chelidonium and lycopodium follow and complement each other very well. So if you've given the child lycopodium but they're still not doing well, you might try the chelidonium or reverse that sequence, because they do complement and follow each other well. A one-sided sick headache, which Dr. Ajay Yadav mentioned last week. What is a sick headache? When somebody is really feeling sick. A pain coming back from the back of the head and settling on the right eye. That is a real specific remedy. You know that this person is hurting severely in the right eye, and the remedy he suggests is sanguinaria. Another sick headache with vomiting as feeling vertigo, and the people who have an aura, they say it's dizziness. So they might say, a child might say, I'm feeling very dizzy, the room is spinning. The two remedies that I think of, one is tobacco, and the other one that Dr. Clark mentions, like seasickness, is Cocculus indicus. And for this one, there's vomiting and also vertigo. So that's where you would look it up in the repertory. I wanted to mention, okay, here's one really important remedy for children. It is a typical child's remedy that is close to Calcarea carbonicum, and it's called silica. This is a chronic headache with sensitiveness to pressure, sensitive to noise, to motion, and to light. And if you were to look this up in the repertory, you would be looking up photophobia. So there are a number of technical terms in order to search and find that you need to know in order to get into the repertory and understand. This one is better. We talked about one earlier, worse from wrapping up. This one is better by warmth, as wrapping the head in a shawl. And it's a chronic headache with nervousness and a loss of memory from overwork. So you can see how you would have to differentiate between the picric acid and the silica. I would typically go for silica usually first in a little child. Is there somebody online? No? Okay. So for the silica child, overwork, they are another one that is closely related to nature muriaticum personality. They are hard workers. They have a very they have very strong identity about self, who they are, or they're searching for who they are. They want to be independent, and their headache commences low in the back of the neck with a feeling as if the muscles could not support the head. So if you have an infant that is just born and their head flops over, they actually might sit like this quite a bit, because they need support. So desperately do they need support, they will support themselves, or they will ask for support. More likely a pulsatilla child, I do this a lot, more likely a pulsatilla child will be the one who comes and whines and says very moodily that needs help with everything. But the silica child also could use your support and your help through these situations. Dr. Sharma, are you with us? No, his internet probably is having difficulty today. So their headaches are passing over from the back of the head, will pass over the top of the head and the forehead, and also can involve the eyeballs, and they will say as a description that it's sore. So we're usually asking, please describe your symptoms, please describe your pain, because we can look up pain in innumerable ways. Is the pain shooting, pressing, stitching? Is it aching? What is it, so that we can get more specific in the selection of the remedy? And this is something that if you are actually in the state, it's more easy to describe. But when you're out of the state, sometimes you just lose that memory of the intensity of the pain. Okay, I wanted to mention something else here, and that is from Dr. Herbert Roberts, MD, another good friend, who has a book called Sensations as If. And in that, people might describe their pains in a metaphorical or poetic way to say it's as if blah, blah, blah. And so now you can look it up to find out. If I go in the chapter on head, there are so many pages. Let me see. Probably 40 pages of as if. So if I just select one, let's see. Here we have again flashes of throb-like pain at the top of the head. It's as if the top of the head would be taken off by flashes of throb-like pain. So this is really very unique and specific, and the remedy is xanthan, which I may not be pronouncing correctly. Here's another one that says a ball of fire in the forehead, and for that one, the remedy is causticum. Causticum, you know, it's caustic, it's lye. You coat pretzels, delicious pretzels with them. And however, it's also a very deep grief remedy. A person can, if you come across a person who you say, God, they are caustic, you know, you might consider causticum, but they are also do-gooders. And they are fighters in the world for their passion and their advocacy work. This is really a good remedy, and they often have swelling and edema too. Let me see. Oh, here's another one. Remember I mentioned picric acid for those studious students? They might say the head would fly apart. And this is, Robert says this is also for picric acid. What if your brain is wrapped in a fog? If you say that, he mentions petroleum. And you know, these are just one-time things. You need to actually put the whole picture together. You need to confirm it by using the Materia Medica, looking up the encyclopedia, seeing that everything matches. If it doesn't, then this one little clue is not going to be the be-all and end-all for you. And it's always good to speak to a professional homeopath who can make heads or tails of the situation. Here we have fiery points, burning lids, mercurius. My goodness, I think I'm going to read this whole list here. This says fiery points, burning lids. So the bold word is fiery. So here's a list of things that are fiery. Fiery, stars passed before the left eye. The objects that were seen were fiery. And here we have digitalis, iotum, stramonium, veratrum album, and violet. Fiery body before the eyes in the dark. And this one is argentite, which has come up many, many times as a headache remedy. What if there are fiery circles? Calc-phos, ipecac, and pulsatilla. All three of those are excellent for children. And I wanted to mention that Clark had said in his prescriber book that calc-phos was especially good for headache in school children. So I'm going to take a look over on Homeopathy World Community for a moment in a blog that is biochemistry and their salts. So these are the biochemic Schussler cell salts, and read a little bit about what it says about calcarea phosphoricum, because this is helping a child in their growth and development process. And Schussler says it is a constituent of the bones, teeth, connective tissue, the blood corpuscles, and the gastric juice. It helps give solidity to bones and teeth. This is a valuable childhood remedy as it has much to do with the development of the body. It is useful in all bone diseases and diseases of the teeth. It is especially useful in convalescence after acute disease. It aids in the union of bone fractures. We have that it is worse probably for cold, motion, change of weather, and getting wet. All aggravate the child's symptoms. They are relieved by rest and warmth. As a matter of fact, calc phos, along with rutograviolas, is a remedy that is used extensively for children who have a brain tumor, a glioma. So, but calc phos in a cell salt, and I thought I brought my bottle to show you, little tiny tabs of tissue salts that easily melt in your mouth. And you don't have to force children to take these remedies. They are glad, and they will even ask, can I have my remedy? Because they are so easy to take. They don't taste bad, and they actually taste good because usually they're sugar. But the cell salts are very gentle. They can be taken every day in the 6x potency. Mr. M on the line says that he gives his wife Argentum nitricum for her headaches because she craves sweets prior to the headache. As this happens every time, we have been able to prevent many of her headaches by giving the remedy when the craving occurs. Mr. M has also found that causticum works well for those with arthralgia who have migraines. Thank you for your contribution. We really appreciate those folks who comment or even are able to call in. I want to make a good note, taking off of what you said, Mr. M. Prevention is the best cure. Benjamin Franklin said an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And this means that if you've been taking a journal, if you've been keeping a diary, and you learn more about the periodicity, the cycles, the triggers for the headaches, then you're better able to know when to expect it, what to avoid, in terms of your food, or if the child is living in an environment where the parents are smoking up a chimney storm and they're stuck in the car with the smoke, and then they come down with a headache, that they're sensitive every time this happens. So the prevention is not just getting the remedy, but setting the good environmental factors. I wanted to also mention stress reduction techniques, that helping the child to relax, to take deep breaths, to comfort them, to know that you are there supporting them, to let them know that there is hope about their disease, about their pain, that you're going to bring them chicken soup or whatever it is that's going to make them feel better, that you're going to sit there and put a cold compress on their head, that you love them. I think love is a really very potent healer. So if a child, and this may be actually natural for a child, if the child is living in a poor situation, they may be attracted to find another mentor, somebody who can help them and comfort them, or a pet can even comfort them in their time of trouble, that they get some closeness to another living being. There are many things that we can do to relieve the tension. Children who are bullied at school, what are we going to do for them? They can come home and say, I have a headache. And they actually could. It might not just be an excuse, because these things are happening. And of course, you're going to have to step in and speak to the administration, to the teachers at school, to find out what's going on. There are a lot of actions that you can take out there to reduce, to do preventive work, rather than just constantly, when the pain occurs, to try and handle it in the middle of an episode. And any other comments or suggestions are always welcome. I wanted to stress that prevention and having a safe environment, and all of the different triggers that we mentioned should be looked at. Let's see. This is so fascinating. You know, whenever I open up any of my books, I can be here for hours because it's so fascinating to look and see what is going on here. So one more sensation, as if the head were in a fog. We mentioned petroleum. And another one is as if the head were wrapped up in a warm water during a headache. That's very fascinating. And the remedy selected is allium cepa, our common red onion, which we know is for hay fever type symptoms, for that burning eyes, watery burning eyes, and all that congestion. So if you put that all together, you've come up with the allium cepa. How about, a lot of people are very familiar with thuya as after vaccinations, and this is also a potential cause for a child to have neurological damage, head pain, migraines. Check to see, keep that diary. Is a vaccination one of the factors in your child's headache? And here, Dr. Clark says, as if there were a worm crawling through your forehead. Very interesting. And the remedy for that is sulfur, specifically. And sulfur would be a really great remedy for a kid who is warm-blooded, always hot and flushed, ears are red, could have that headache, could be a very kid who really likes exercise. And we are familiar with another keynote symptom for sulfur, when your child sticks their feet out of the bed at night when they're sleeping because their feet are so hot and want to cool them off. So you can see this is a pretty hot-headed kid, and it's one of Hahnemann's favorite remedies, sulfur. We think about these kind of kids who collect stuff and put frogs and pennies and things that they find in the neighborhood, and they put it in their pocket. They are very fun kids to be around, innovative kids. So what I wanted to say here with the idea of a worm crawling through the forehead, and I mentioned thuya because sometimes there is a sensation as if there is something alive in the body. And I think that I had seen that. I'd have to look it up in here, the sensations as if, but if in the abdomen, in the central part of the body, we feel that something is alive, thuya is a remedy that is often selected. And I want to show you here, what if there's a sensation as if the nails and needles were being driven into the head? A common migraine symptom. We have a huge list. This whole section here, this whole thing is driven into the head. What could be driven into the head? We have the needles were being, DER is a remedy. I'm not familiar with that. But the most common one is as if a nail were driven into the head over the nose. Ignatia, another grief remedy for a child who is sighing quite a bit and has had a great loss. Maybe they lost a pet, maybe they lost a favorite something, maybe they moved in and lost their best friend. Any kind of loss, Ignatia. We have the head were driven asunder. This must be an old-time kind of vernacular. Another one, a nail were driven into the head. So even though we know Ignatia is maybe top on our list, we have to look at coffea, magnesium phos, ambo, petelia, and ruta. All of those have that same sensation as if a nail were driven into the head. Another way of saying it, somebody might say a nail were driven into the brain. And here, asafoetida and petelia also. So these are plants. Most of these are plant remedies except for the magnesium phos, which is a mineral. Again, the nail were driven into the left forehead into the brain, so it's the other side, sanguinaria. the nail were driven into the forehead again. He has it written twice, Ignatia. And now we've got our lovely Thuya remedy for after vaccinations. Nail were driven into the frontal eminence. Wow, he can get very specific and very detailed. And this is where homeopaths who have a lot of kids coming into their office might know the best remedy for that child and to help the parents through these difficult years. And we only have a few minutes left. I hope it's been fascinating, exciting, helpful, and gives you hope to know that there are other approaches besides drugs, heavy-duty drugs that could possibly have to be given for a lifetime, have to be given and adjusted because they cause side effects, come up on the market as being withdrawn because they find out that not only does it take away your headache, but it does something else pretty much worse to you. If you watch the commercials, you'll know. And, you know, having your child dependent upon drugs is not really the best thing. When you do homeopathy, it's for a short period of time. Most likely it's you do it, you get the person well, you get their vital force up and going, you boost their immune system, and then only on occasion might they actually need it. When there's like a really great stress going on in their life, then you can go back to the remedies. But you really want the child to be able to feel self-assured and confident and know that they have it within their power to comfort themselves, to find solutions, to relieve their pain, and to actually improve their lifestyle. If they know that every time they eat a chocolate or a peanut or a whatever, they're going to get sick, they're going to take the responsibility for their livelihood to say, you know, I'm strong enough. I don't have to be coerced or have peer pressure. I can deal in the world on my own. And, you know, with my parents' help, of course, you need to be there for them to support them, especially if they're a silica child. So that's our show for today, really. And I want to thank Amnon for listening so patiently and quietly. I want to tell everyone to please vote. Help us if we can possibly. You know, it's not a shoe-in, but just to let us know that you're out there and thinking of us. Click that vote button on the Mission Small Business. And if you want to hear more from me, I'm here on Mondays at 11, but I'm also on Blog Talk Radio every week. On Wednesday this week, I'll be with Dr. Adil. We've been going through the repertory rubric by rubric in the chest, and he is full of real-life experience, stories to tell, helpful answers. People have commented. We've done full shows about questions that people have asked. We've been talking about the heart, the chest, the lungs, the mammae. On Thursday at 11, we have Dr. Christina Chambreau talking about pets. We've been talking about pet behavior, and what if your dog or cat is disobedient and doing something that's really not good in the family? Well, definitely first look at the family situation. Is it a dysfunctional family? But she gives lots of hints for what to do with those cats that scratch and the dogs that bark. And then we have following Alan Phillips, who talks about vaccinations and your rights in the United States, current events, news, up-to-the-minute stuff. And this is a fantastic show. Oh, one more thing I wanted to mention. We have a special show. It's a one-time event on Tuesday. I'm going to be up early, 9 a.m., because we're going to be speaking to Rachel Roberts in the UK about a lot of concern about homeopathy for patients and homeopaths to be able to get and give prescription of their homeopathic remedies. We're going to hear from her what is going on in the Parliament and with this amendment to a bill. So tune in and find out what's happening with homeopathy in your world. Creating waves of awareness on the Health In Show. We love you all, and keep coming back. Send us your feedback. Thank you.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. Our weekly lineup of call-in programs includes Computers 2K Now with Amnon Nissan, Sundays 9 a.m. to noon. Health In with Debby Bruck, Mondays 11 a.m. till noon. The Scope of Things with Marilyn Shannon, Mondays 7 to 8 p.m. Breaking Free with Marilyn Shannon, Mondays 8 to 9 p.m. Reawaken Your Brilliance with Julie Seibert, Wednesdays 8 to 9 p.m. And if you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it at www.nissancommunications.com.